Today, I would love to share with you all what I am learning about self-care. And I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, we teach what we most need to learn. So I have learned a lot about self-care. A few weeks ago, I'm picking up my son after school. He's 13. And he gets in the car after school, and I'm asking him about his day, and we're chatting. Hi, how was your day? What did you have for homework? All of that kind of stuff. And my son looks over to me, and he says, Mom, you are so serious. You really need to smile more. I was like, because I thought I smiled a lot, I thought I'm pretty cool, but he felt from his perception that I was way too serious and I needed to smile more. So I, being the conscious parent that I am, I just, withheld the tears and just asked him, well, what do you mean by that? Tell me more about that. And he said, well, it's like, Mom, I get in the car and the first thing you want to know is, what do you have for homework? And when are you going to do your homework? And what time are you going to do your homework? And did you clean your room? And are you going to clean your room before you do your homework or after you do your homework? Are you going to jump on the trampoline before you clean your room or after you clean your room? And he just sort of had this litany of his experience of me, which was not my experience of myself, let me tell you. Nevertheless, it was his experience. And so as I'm trying to take this dagger out of my heart, right, and again, being the conscious parent that I am, I withheld the urge inside of me to say, well, if you cleaned your room the first time I asked you, and if you did your homework the first time I asked you, perhaps I would be smiling more, right? But we all are learning about this philosophy called conscious parenting, so instead, I simply said, oh, tell me more about that. And when I got home, I went to my special chair, and I sat down with this serious lack of smiling place within me. And I sat down with it, and I recognized that what he was saying to me was absolutely accurate. I needed to smile more, and I needed to be less serious all of the time. He was spot on. So I sat in my chair, and the place inside of me that can be serious and can have high expectations for myself, and I have a lot of things that I want to do and a lot of things that I want to share, and I can have really high expectations on myself, and that particular place that can be serious said to me, I don't want to be so serious either. I want to smile more too. I want to smile more in my own life. I want to smile more in my day-to-day life. And it resonated so deeply with me because I hear this from my clients that I work with as well, and it's fascinating to me because I believe that all of us in here would probably agree that there are things that our spirit is calling us to do on a daily basis, that we know intellectually that it would help us to feel that enlivened, awake feeling that we're longing to go through life with. We know intellectually the things that enliven us, yes? Yes. And yet it's so fascinating to me how challenging it can be sometimes to carry that out. I don't know about you all, but is it easy for you to put yourself sort of last on your list? Yeah. When I was sitting in that chair, it wasn't the big life-changing things that I needed to do. It was the simple things like go to your yoga class. That day, literally, that is what was prompting me inside. Just go to yoga. It wasn't like I needed a trip around the world and to experience different cultures. It was simply go to yoga. So I'm fascinated, and I do research around this idea that I believe all of us know exactly the prompting that is within our heart and our spirit, and yet it's so easy to override that. Because, why? When you think of taking care of yourself, when you think of taking care of yourself first, what do you think? It is selfish. Yes, say that again. It is selfish. Isn't that fascinating that every one of us in this room could know the answer? When we think about taking care of ourselves, it somehow feels selfish. And when we think of taking care of ourselves first, it feels like a sin, right? Like first, right? And yet, it's proven. If you pick up any financial book, let's say, any book on finance, doesn't matter the different philosophy on finance. You pick up any book on finance, the first rule of finance is pay yourself when? First. Pay yourself second? Pay yourself first. So it's proven that when we pay ourselves first, and those who do pay themselves first, never get to the end of the month and don't have money for rent or mortgage or food. But those who say, well, I'm going to pay myself as soon as I pay the bills, rarely end up saving the money that others do. Is this accurate? It is proven, yes. Every financial book. Self-care is exactly the same way. And so what I have learned is that I've become an advocate and sort of passionate about breaking down this cultural, unspoken agreement that we are all taught that to take care of ourselves first is selfish. Because none of us wants to be narcissistic, none of us want to be selfish. But what I've learned is that when we don't take care of ourselves, that's when we actually are the most narcissistic. It seems like a paradox, but when we don't take care of ourselves, or I speak for myself this morning, when I don't take care of myself and I walk into a room, my family can feel my energy. Is that true? Do you have individuals or perhaps yourself? I know for me, I can walk into a room and my husband or my son can know what kind of a mood I'm in just by my own energy. I don't even, hi, come on in. I don't even need to say a word. That's narcissistic because then everything is revolving around me. People have to tiptoe around me, or people have to sort of accommodate my mood in a certain kind of a way. Or perhaps I end up with that sort of sandpaper, kind of conversation with someone. Or, worse, my son. And so I have learned that when we don't take care of ourselves, we are actually being more self-centered, more selfish, and more narcissistic. Because when you think of someone, and this is why Patricia and her carload of people were so compelling to me, because there was so much joy coming out of their car. So when we have an overflow, and when we're living from that overflow, it's contagious, isn't it? It's attractive. It's compelling. So I like to think of it as philanthropy. Right? This is my mission, is that each one of us would leave here today going, I am a philanthropist, right? A philanthropist has an overwhelming amount of good in their life, and they joyfully give of their overflow. So I have taken on in my own life that I want to be a philanthropist in my energy, in my vitality, in my well-being, in my mood. And I want to give from that overflow, because the true givers of the world, true giving, is not a giving from lack, right? True giving is a giving from our overflow. And I'm on a mission to break down this cultural unspoken message that we're taught that we need to martyr ourselves. In this culture, right, the person who puts everyone else first and puts themselves last, works themselves to the bone, takes care of everyone else in front of them. These are the people culturally that sort of get the accolades. Like, sacrifice is noble, right? And yet, if you look up the real definition of the word sacrifice, the real definition of the word sacrifice is to make sacred. So when we flip this paradigm on its head and we begin to have the courage and give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves when? First. When we have the courage, because I like to say self-care is not for the faint of heart. Okay, I'm really not talking about massages and getting our nails done, although that's part of it. I'd be lying to say that. It's like the training wheels of self-care, but we all need our training wheels, right? It gets us. What I'm talking about, though, I'm really talking about a really deep soul nourishing. It's the soul nourishing. It's the coming home that Laura was singing about. Because we move through this life and we can become inundated with the world, and we need to remind ourselves that we are in this world but not of it. There is a longing inside of each one of us right now to come home to ourselves. That is an eternal longing. It never goes away. Sometimes we override it because it's a still small voice. But right now, within each one of us, there is a longing to come home to your eternal self, your authentic self, your essential self, and live from that place. And so self-care, becoming non-negotiable, and becoming the thing that we do first, is the thing that will then bring us home over and over and over again to our own selves. Because you know what? Each one of us in this room is coded and encoded with greatness. Each one of us is coded and encoded with specific gifts that only you can give the way that you have come to give them. No one else can do it like you can do it. And each one of our gifts is essential. The opening song here, how could anyone ever tell you? I love that song because how could anyone ever tell any one of us that we were anything less than beautiful, anything less than whole, anything less than a messenger? Every one of us chose a message, chose a way of being, chose gifts to give, to share, to contribute. And the thing about it is that our soul will not rest until we have come here and given what we have come here to give. Is that true? Yes. There's an unrest inside of us, and I call it the holy unrest, and I think it's wholly and absolutely great that it's here, that unrest. Because that unrest is compelling us. It's a nag. It's a nagging voice, and it just won't go away. And it's great that it just won't go away. Because we've come here to be something, to give something, to share something. We are givers. We are all encoded to give. And we're not really going to rest easy until we give. And what happens when we neglect taking care of ourselves, we're living at a certain level of consciousness, and we're all getting by. We're very fortunate in this country. There's no one here that isn't really getting by. There's a deeper calling. There's a richer, Thoreau, I think, was so wise when he talked about that life of quiet desperation. So many of us in our culture, we are taught to succeed and to have X amount of zeros in our bank account and drive a certain car and have a certain, lifestyle. And there can still be undergirding it that life of quiet desperation. And we can slowly but surely, little by little, be dying on the vine a little bit. Nothing overt, nothing huge, nothing horrible, but dying on the vine nonetheless. And when I really get still with individuals one-on-one, what I find is that truly we're really dying to live. Are you dying to live more full out, more full on than you've ever lived before? And I don't know about you guys, but I'm finding to me that life just goes by in a nanosecond. It's like life is going by. We have this nanosecond opportunity, and I don't know about you guys, but I want to make the most of my nanosecond. You know, I want my nanosecond to be a full-on, full-out masterpiece. I want to live full on. I want to live full out. I want to not hold back. I want to give it all. You know, I want to be all used up, right? We all want to be all used up. Do you want to give more fully? Yes. Do you want to live more fully? Yes. Do you want to tap into even more of this infinite potential than you ever thought was possible? Yes. Yes? So let's do this for a moment. Let's just gently close your eyes. I absolutely, utterly guarantee you that if you just close your eyes for a moment and just ask your own spirit what it is that it would love to be nourished, what it is that it would love to be nurtured. What is it that would feed your spirit today? Feed your soul today. That you may be a giver like you've never given before. That you may leave here today that philanthropist that you know is inside of you. So we're just going to just allow yourself to listen to your own spirit. Just allowing your own spirit to share with you what it is that would enrich your life, what it is that it needs from you to feel enriched from the inside out, because this nourishing of your spirit is the practice of connecting to the inexhaustible presence that is everywhere, that is available to you, to feed you, to nourish you, to nurture you like you have never been nurtured before. So as you feel this welling up inside of you, make an agreement inside of yourself that today you will have the courage to feed this place inside of you first, not second, not third, first, first, first. And whenever you're ready, just gently open your eyes. What I guarantee you is it can be something as simple in the middle of the day as just playing a piece of music that would really feed you in a deep way. It doesn't have to be anything really extravagant. But if it is that thing that truly takes you from your life, from your little life, to that inexhaustible wellspring, you will find an inexhaustible wellspring. And it feeds us and feeds us and feeds us, and it never runs dry. And as we begin in a non-negotiable way to tap into that place over and over and over again, that we live from this place and we're never on empty. My dad told me when he was teaching me to drive, my dad said, never let your tank get below half. You know, he didn't want me to be stranded somewhere. He didn't want me to be running on fumes. And I have found in my life that that is so true. When I am running on fumes in my life, I end up fuming. It's not pretty. So, I'm asking us to make an agreement today. Are you seeing the value? You know, when we're on a plane and every flight attendant says, you know, to put on your own oxygen mask first, right? We all hear that. Does anyone ever have the thought, oh my gosh, if I put my oxygen mask on first, that would be so selfish? You would never think that, right? And when we think put our oxygen mask on first, do you ever get the picture like, oh, well, if she puts her oxygen mask on first, she's just going to sit there like a couch potato and not help anybody else. You know, it's just not going to happen. Those individuals who best care for themselves are the first people to give. When the plane is going down, those that have the oxygen are going to be able to best assist those around us. So we want to put our oxygen mask on first, not only in an emergency, but in everyday life. That's a rather brilliant philosophy. Take care of ourselves first, that we can best take care of others. It's a wonderful philosophy. Can we make an agreement as we're leaving here today, though, that we will really practice doing it first? Are you guys in with me a little bit on this? Because it's one of those things that you must prove out to yourself. So for instance, if something's calling you, like taking a yoga class or putting on a piece of music, a lot of my clients, they call in for their sessions in the middle of their day, so they'll take their lunch hour or a break during their day and they'll have their session. And at first they can feel somewhat selfish doing it. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this during my day. But what people tell me over and over and over and over again is that the rest of their day, they ended up getting a project done in half the amount of time. They, ended up pitching a project that, was very well received because of the place in consciousness that they showed up in. They walk in after work instead of being tired and exhausted, and they're on an overflow for their children. So when we give first, always, not by exception, always we have more to give those around us. Yes?
Yes.
So, I'm going to ask you to join together with me. Let's see here. I'm going to say an affirmation. You guys repeat after me. I am willing to nourish my spirit. I am willing to nourish my spirit. I am willing to nourish my spirit first. I am willing to nourish my spirit first. I am here to shine. I am here to shine. I think we should do that again. I am here to shine. I am here to shine. You guys stand up. We got to just stand up on our own behalf here. I say it, you repeat it. I am here to shine. I am here to shine. Everybody all together. I am here to shine. Shine on, baby. Okay. Let's take this into prayer. So you may just gently have a seat here. How grateful I am.